Hello YouTube, Own Soldier 86 back here with another video. And what we're going to do now is we created this platform with the correct side textures, but I want to create a floor and ceiling that is separate from this texture that we have here. So we're going to go back up to Create Material, and we're going to go back to Browse for Material Image. And thinking about what that floor might look like, we do have an image that was saved as Floor 1 and Ceiling 1. How convenient. This is why I mentioned a while back in a video that planning your textures out in advance is super helpful, because now we can just easily apply any textures that we've already created into the modeling software. Now, this is important. Remember, this texture was 64 by 64. Down here in this sizing, it assumes that we want 800 by 400. That is not correct, because we know this is going to be equal proportions to a perfect square. We need 800 by 800. So let's click that chain link here. We're going to break that link, and we are going to now type in manually 800 by 800. That way we're going to make sure that that texture is the correct size. We're going to say OK, and we're going to paint that surface. Now look at that. That looks fantastic. It looks kind of like we have like wooden planks that go across here. That looks wonderful. Now, if I go to the ceiling here, remember, looking up, this is considered a ceiling. I could apply this texture down here too, but it doesn't really jibe well with the brick texture that is above it. It doesn't seem right. And so what we had done is we had created that ceiling texture from before, Ceiling 1. Open, make sure it's the correct size, say OK. And instead, we're going to now apply the ceiling texture. Wow. That is fantastic. We have ourselves a platform ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and highlight the whole thing, click G for Create Component, and we're going to move that off to the side. I'm just stacking these things over here. It doesn't even matter right now, because we're going to talk a little bit about the layout of a level in a minute. And I'm going to create another box, 800 by 800. Now, if you do mess up and you make a square that's 800 by 800 or a box, and then you realize later, well, I don't want it to be that big. Remember, we have this push-pull tool that we can resize at any time, and by typing in the number that we want. So instead of 800 by 800, I want 800 by 400. I'll just click, or I'll type in 400 under this lower right-hand corner distance box. You will see 400 show up. I let go, and it created a box that's 400 instead of 800. Meters deep. And that's really, really helpful, because we can resize that at any point to whatever size that we want. 400, adding an extra 400 will create that 800 by 800 cube again. Let's create another texture. Let's use this rail that we talked about. Now, we knew that this was 64 by 16, and considering our proportions again, we should be able to divide that 800 by 4, because now we're going from 64 pixels down to 16. 64 divided by 4 is 16. So remembering our proportions, if we divide 800 by 4, we now get 200. And look at that, Google SketchUp already did that for us. That's fantastic. Sometimes it works, and sometimes, like you saw before, it doesn't work. So you can't always assume that Google SketchUp will do it for you correctly. And we might have to break that chain link and do it manually. We're going to go ahead and say OK. We're going to click that and apply. Now, wow, that is a mess. And what happened is because I had the whole cube highlighted, it assumed that I wanted to apply this texture to the whole cube. Well, that is not exactly what I wanted to do. I only want to apply it to one side. So I'm going to say Control-Z to undo that. And I'm going to try this again, unselecting that box. I just kind of clicked away from it. It unselected that. Go back here, click here, and that is what I wanted. Now, just like what we saw before with the platform, we have too many tessellations of this texture. We don't want that many. So we're going to go ahead and size this down until we get the right size that we want. And it looks in the corner that we want it to be negative 600. We want to subtract 600 meters from this area of the box, at the depth anyway. And so I'm just to make sure it's perfect, I'm going to type in 600, and there it is. We have a perfect, this would be a 800 by 800 top, but then it's only 200 meters deep. And that's exactly what we want for this particular texture. And we're going to add a floor and a ceiling to this as well in the next video.